Hello, I'm Jennifer Barnes. I am a fifth grade teacher at Madrid Elementary School in Madrid, Iowa. I'm also a graduate student here at Morningside College. The problem that I focused my research around is the United States is really being faced with a major problem right now, and that is how to effectively address problem behavior in schools and classrooms. Um, it has been shown that about nearly 20% of the United States youth has experienced emotional and or behavior problems. So this is increasingly a problem in the United States that really needs to be addressed. So without behavior interventions, students' misbehavior is going to continue, and then in turn can cause mental and physical injuries to both teachers and peers. So it can hurt anybody who is involved in the situation, and it can hurt them in a mental way or a physical way. Students' misbehavior is hindering the ability to have students reach their full potential and is really kind of scary because teachers are stating that they're not able to spend as much time on their curriculum as they would like to because they are spending way too much time during the year on discipline in their classrooms. I chose B.F. Skinner's behaviorism theory. So he focuses his theory around the fact that behaviors are learned. They're not something that you're necessarily born with. You learn behaviors by seeing behaviors. And usually, when you are exhibiting some sort of behavior, that is in response to some sort of an environmental stimulus. Positive reinforcement has been shown, and B.F. Skinner has stated that those positive reinforcements after a behavior is going to strengthen that behavior by providing some sort of award or reward, sorry. So if a student is exhibiting some sort of positive behavior, then the teacher might reward with some sort of positive reinforcement. So whether that be a skittle or just a compliment saying, hey, thanks, I like the way you did that, then that's going to in turn really reinforce that behavior and therefore hopefully get more of those behaviors in and less of the negative behaviors out. The purpose of my study was to address the concerns of how to reduce the amount of student misbehavior in classrooms. And the research question that I focused my study around was what interventions have been used to successfully change student behavior in the classroom. I chose to use a qualitative meta-synthesis, which is a approach that brings together past research that has been done on the study area, and then you go in and you really kind of dive deeper into it and see what you can get out of those different studies. And you're looking at multiple studies. So, for example, I had over 30 studies that I looked at that really dug into the different behavioral interventions. And you're really trying to form a new interpretation on those different studies or that field that you're really researching into. The participants in the studies that I was looking into ranged from grades kindergarten through 12th grade. So it was a very large range of students. Past research on behavior interventions was used to answer the research question that I had provided in my last slide. And through that research, I was able to find 4 very successful interventions. So those interventions that I'll dive into deeper here are positive behavior interventions and supports, which is often known as PBIS, tutoring, positive teacher-student relationships, and love and logic. So I'll start here with positive behavior interventions and supports, or PBIS. There was a lot of studies done on PBIS. This is a very popular behavior intervention. So one study that I had found said that there were positive effects on office discipline referral. So there was less of those going into the office. There was less suspensions, and the academic achievement rate went up. So they were doing a lot better on their academics. And what I'm understanding is that if there's less office discipline referrals and suspensions, that misbehavior was going down. Another study found that there was positive outcomes for both problem behaviors and bullying. And then PBIS has been proven to show improved outcomes for all students. So whether that be in behavior, academics, friendships, teacher-student relationships, there's all sorts of really good things that come from PBIS, and reinforcing. They really focus on reinforcing that good behavior to try and wean out that negative behavior in the classroom in schools. Next, I have Tootling. So Tootling was often used alongside with ClassDojo, which is an app that a lot of teachers have been using to communicate with parents, and you can put points in there for each student. So if they did something good, you can give them a point. If they maybe exhibited a negative behavior, you can take away a point. So Tootling, along with the ClassDojo, has successfully been found to decrease the problem behavior of the class as a whole. So if we look at the picture I have over here in the left corner, that is an example of Tootling in a classroom. So they have a bulletin board where the students go and they write down something positive that they saw somebody else do that day. So it's really building on the class climate, really trying to make that an inviting environment for them so that they can feel safe and make good decisions while they're in that classroom. One study I found, they reported that during the baseline period of their data collection, 41% of the time there were misbehaviors in the classroom. And then after they had implemented Tootling along with ClassDojo, they had only 19% of misbehaviors during that instructional time. So that shows that there was a decrease from nothing to when they had implemented that behavior intervention. So that showed that was in fact working to wean out those student misbehaviors. Next, I have Love and Logic. Love and Logic. This is one that really focuses on building those relationships and building that positive environment and inviting environment. So after implementing it, 84% of teachers have reported that they improved their relationship with their students. So they really were building those positive relationships. 68% reported spending less time managing behavior disruptions in their classroom. And then to go along with that, 82 of the teachers reported having more control over their classroom and discipline. So they were feeling a lot more confident and seeing a lot less misbehavior in their classrooms after implementing the Love and Logic framework into their classrooms. And lastly, I have teacher-student relationships. So this is a really important intervention that could go along with any behavior intervention that could be implemented. A lot of behavior interventions have this as part of the intervention just because it's so important to create those positive relationships with the students. So when students and teachers have the positive relationships, there's evidence that shows that there are positive trends in the engagement of the students. So they're engaged more of the time, which leaves less time for those misbehaviors to happen. Are these two researchers down here, Sukowski and Simmons, refer to the positive teacher relationship as sort of a protective factor against peer victimization or bullying. So students are feeling a lot more safe in the classroom, which then leads to less of the bullying or the peer victimization because of these relationships. A couple additional interventions that were found include Tools for Getting Along and the Good Behavior Game. These two didn't have a whole lot of research on them, so this is something that I would like to see some more research on just to kind of see how they're implemented, how they work. and all of that. So implications for teachers. So these four interventions that I had found are definitely not the only interventions that are out there to help with behaviors in the classroom, but they're definitely four that had a lot more research than some of the other ones. So those four interventions, they all have been proven to show positive trends in student behavior and in student engagement. The interventions would be beneficial to try in any classroom where students are exhibiting negative behaviors and maybe the teacher's running out of ideas to try to decrease those behaviors. Each of these interventions is going to help the teacher to create a positive and an inviting, safe environment in their classrooms to really help those students to understand what it is that's expected of them, and that they know kind of what the consequences are if certain behaviors do arise. Some limitations from my study. So this was a metasynthesis, like I had said earlier, which is more of a review of studies that have already been put into place. So a limitation is that it's not empirical research. So it's not obtaining those original findings, whereas empirical research really gets to go in and dig in and find their own original findings. Whereas a metasynthesis, we're really looking at findings from other people's empirical research. None of the studies that were found for this research metasynthesis were conducted by the same teacher or same researchers, sorry. So this is going to cause differences in the methods for each study. So that could be the sample size, the demographics of the participants, the way that the research was laid out. So there could be different ways that, for example, PBIS was implemented between the different researchers. So it doesn't guarantee that each of those researchers really went in and followed the exact same guidelines as all the other ones and were working towards kind of the same thing. And then another one, there's limited research on some of the popular behavior interventions that are currently being implemented. For example, Love and Logic is one that doesn't have a whole lot of research done on that. So that would be a limitation, because I only was able to find a couple research articles on Love and Logic, whereas like PBIS has a lot of research articles done on that. So some suggestions for future research. I would suggest empirical research should be done to explore the benefits of behavior interventions in classrooms where behavior is an issue. So any sort of empirical research to really dive in and check out any of those behavior interventions, such as Love and Logic or PBIS again. And then also to focus on new behavior interventions and collecting empirical data on whether or not those interventions are successful. So, like I said, those other two earlier, so tools for getting along and the bad behavior game. So to have a little more empirical research on those, just so that we would have some more options to choose from when choosing our behavior interventions. And then here are my resources from my slides today. So hopefully I was able to answer any questions throughout there. If not, feel free to ask me and I will let you know anything that I did not cover. Thank you.